What's up, girlfriends? Welcome to Girlfriend Therapy, a year of conversations. You guys know I've been having the most amazing time with this series for this year, a year of conversations. And I've had some incredible conversations. And I know I say this every week, and every week it is absolutely true. But I am so excited about my guest today, guys. Not only is she my little cousin, I always have to say my little cousin, but she is the beautiful, as you guys can see, Miss Bridgette Montgomery. She is so dynamic, guys. So she is actually working on, or finishing up rather, her PhD in, what is it? Or I guess working on it was a doctorate in social work. So she's super close to finishing it. I think she defends her dissertation like this month or next month, but she'll tell you guys more about that. But she is the founder, the owner, lead therapist of Bridge of Love 2, which is a private practice that specializes in trauma. And she's a trauma expert certified in EMDR. And I'll let her explain what that is. But I am so excited to have, excuse me, guys, I've been fighting this sinus stuff. But I'm so excited to have Bridgette with us here today, soon to be Dr. Montgomery, probably within the next few weeks. But what's up, cuz? So glad to have you this morning.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm going to do my best without calling you by your nickname. So if I start out, and if I say dirt by accident,
right. Exactly.
It's not dirt, but if I call her dirt, guys, just kind of go with it. That's what happens with, within our family. We call each other dirt. So
right, which is so funny. I don't know who started that, but we do.
Somebody.
We all call each other dirt. So
and it's like you say dirt, but and it's like we know who we talking to.
Exactly.
It's like, hey dirt, what's up, dirt? Hey dirt.
It's just so funny. We have to research and figure out where that originated, because we literally do call each other dirt all the time. This is the dynamic of having like family on your podcast, is because all of that, the family stuff comes out and it's very casual. But even if it's casual, guys, I want you guys to understand that I am so godly proud of this woman of God. Just to see your little cousin, and she's not like little. I mean, of course, we're all grown up, but just to see all the things that you're doing and how dynamic you are. Yesterday, we actually, I think it was yesterday, goodness, we both are like so busy, I can't even keep up with the days. But I think yesterday we talked and I was like, so what do we want to talk about? And I tell you guys, I probably was on the phone with her for about 30 minutes. And I'm so excited about what we're going to talk about today. So I don't even know where to start. We'll start with kind of like your doctorate thesis, kind of around that space where you're talking about, I guess, raising a child like in a digital world. But I'll let you start where you want to jump in. And I'm sure I have a lot of questions, but this is so fascinating. I just want to give you time to go ahead and get started.
Okay. So like you said, I'm currently coming to the end of my journey, and I'm working on, I'm ending my journey with my doctorate in social work. My dissertation is actually on focusing on digital immigrants, raising digital natives, and looking at the influence that social media has on youth social, emotional, and behavioral development.
Can you just explain a little bit more about the digital immigrants versus the digital natives? That's a really interesting term.
So digital natives are being defined as anyone that are born before 1980, and digital natives are being defined as those that are being that were born after 1980. So digital immigrants, the word immigrants, immigrating into this digital culture. So, the World Wide Web pretty much came into existence around 1980. And so at that time that, the World Wide Web was birthed, those of us who were born before 1980, we weren't born into this culture. And those who were born into this culture are natives. And so this is the culture, this is the world of which they were birthed to. And so This is their world. This is their culture. This is what they know. And so
Did
the
you
native,
coin those terms?
I did not coin these terms.
Okay.
These terms were coined by Mark Prinsky. And
Okay.
so he came up with this terminology. And so I'm borrowing them from him because,
Yeah.
you know, I like that idea, and I like the names that it was given. And so looking at two different generations, as opposed to, you know, we got millennials, and we got I think my generation, before looking at immigrants and natives, my generation, we got baby boomers,
Right.
and
What is it? The Gen Y, Gen Z,
I'm
millennials?
X,
Okay.
right? So
Right.
you're X too, right?
I
We're
think so.
Gen X,
Generation X.
right?
Yeah.
So we're Gen X. Our parents are boomers,
Right.
right? And before, you know, they were, you know, people were looking at generations in terms of boomers, X, you know, millennials, and then Y, and whatever, right? And so that's
Right.
kind of how they're looking at it, and looking at the personality types of those different, you know, helicopter moms were like boomers, right?
Right.
In our generation, in my opinion, I think we came from the best generations. If you're looking at it in terms of, you know, we played outside, you know, we played
Right.
hopscotch, we played double dutch, we played jacks, you know, we ran with our neighbors, you know, we spent the night with each other, we did all
Right.
the things. It was a lot of interaction, you know, it was a lot of communication, it was a lot of hands-on, it was a lot of experience, you know, whereas our parents, you know, those helicopter parents, you know,
Right.
constantly overlooking and constantly, the parenting style was a little bit different, you know, and so each generation brought about something different. And
Right.
this generation right now is, again, a little bit different.
Right.
And this generation is being raised a little bit different. And so that's pretty much kind of like how I'm looking at it. But I kind of looked at it in terms of two different generations,
Right.
immigrants and natives, and looking at it from a digital perspective, because we're living in a digital age right now,
Right.
given the computer, given social media, and given how greatly influenced we all have been by the computer. And so digital immigrants immigrating into this culture, and natives being born into this culture,
Right.
look at the difference between the two. And
Wow.
so that's kind of a breakdown of how I'm looking at it. How I was influenced by that, of course, being an immigrant myself and having a native, my son, who's 12 years old, soon to be 13,
Mm.
on April 22nd. There was a incident that occurred with him. And just a little backdrop about my son: I'm an autism mom, and I identify as an autism mom simply because I gave birth to a child who lived with autism.
Right.
And notice I say I'm an autism mom. I never identify my son as having autism, because he doesn't. He has autism. He was born, you know, with autism,
Right.
right? I don't give him autism. He lived with autism, yes.
Okay.
I'm an autism mom. I identify as being an autism mom, but my son is my son. That's all I
Right.
know.
Right.
I don't know anything else. He
Right.
doesn't know anything else.
And
But
he is brilliant. I have to share this. I never forget. He was about 2 years old, and I remember watching him he was on a tablet. And this is when I knew this was like a whole different generation. Like, he was
that's why
2
we're in
years
trouble
old.
now.
Right. He was 2 years old, guys. And he was like flipping through that tablet like it was nobody's business. Like he knew exactly where he was trying to go. He knew exactly what he wanted to pull up. And it was amazing. So he is like, I think you identify like high functioning. Like, he is brilliant.
And that we're high functioning too. So when we're talking about autism and being high functioning, that all by itself is, you know, it can be traumatic in and of itself, because
Okay.
you have a child who's on the spectrum. And so when you're talking autism, there used to be a language before where people were afraid to use the word autism, because you hear autism and people freak out because they didn't really understand what that meant. And to say you have a
Right.
child that's autistic is like, oh my gosh, because we were given this idea that to be autistic, Then you have a child who can't speak. You have a child that's mute and doing these different things, or whatever, because that's what, that's what was presented to us, and that's what was put in front of us. And no one really understood what a spectrum meant. And a spectrum is just that, a spectrum. You can fall anywhere on that, that spectrum. And if you met one person with autism, you met one person with autism, because no one person is the same, right? So everybody is different. But what characterizes a person with autism is pretty much there's a difference in communication. There's a their communication. There's a delay, or there's a I don't want to say a defect. They meet a criteria with their communication, whether they're underdeveloped or overly developed. Because sometimes vocabulary is too big and it just doesn't match the communication, or is underdeveloped and there's no speech and they're not talking, or is just not syncing with the person that they're talking to. And so, it's not making any sense. Right. And so that's somewhere falling in the middle. Josiah's would be that's falling right there in the middle. It's just not, he's having conversation, but it's just not syncing. Who are you talking to? Right. So it's just not syncing. He's talking and he will not stop talking, but who are you talking? I'm talking to you, but who are you talking to? You're not talking back. So there's no dialogue. There's a monologue.
I see.
Monologue. And it's called receptive expressive language disorder.
Okay.
His receptive skills, his ability to receive information. He can hear you. He got it. I hear you talking to me, but is he comprehending what you're saying? Where we have those different dynamics where we understand words can have multiple meanings. He might grasp the one level. He might not have the multiple meanings for language, and he might not get the expressive language that comes along with it. So his expressive language skills are broken and his receptive language skills are broken. And so his ability to express back, so receptive expressive language skills. So the brokenness there. And so you need to meet the criteria for communication. And then the social skills. So anybody that's on the spectrum also have a disorder with social skills. So, before we understood autism, most people thought autistic people were just flat, emotionless. Like, they don't show any emotion. They can't love. They can't do this. They can't do that. And that's inaccurate too. So there could be a variation of emotions, whereas either they could be overly expressive. They don't understand boundaries. They could, cross boundaries, or they can't flat. They might not feel, because now we're dealing with sensory stuff too. So you have either you could be hypersensitive, undersensitive, or all these different things can be going on inside of your body that can also impact and affect your ability to express or to understand emotion, because of your sensory stuff.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
And so with that, it messes with the ability to socialize. So, they could come up to you and start talking to you right in your face, or they may stay way away from you. Because a smell or a touch or whatever. Or if they come up too close to you, they don't get that the distance is, and Josiah, again, because he falls somewhere in that middle, if he's comfortable with you and he knows you and he likes you, or he's close. It's like personal space, move. Like you're right in their space. And so he don't get it. Or if he don't know you, it's like, look, come here. Closer. And so it's all those different things. So I could go on and on and on. So you got social, you got communication, and then you got repetition. Repetitive. And some people might think it's OCD. look at it like it could look like OCD. It could look like anxiety. It could look like panic. It could look like a lot of different things, but there's a repetition, or you might look like, that might repeat
Right.
things over and over again. It could sound like echolalia. They repeat what you say or whatever. And Josiah have what you call delayed echolalia. He can repeat something that he heard a week ago, and he can repeat it verbatim, and he'll
Oh,
repeat it
wow.
verbatim and won't stop saying it. He can hear something and it is stay in his brain, and then later it'll come out, and he'll keep saying it over and over and over again and won't stop.
Right.
Some kids will line things up in order and neat, and it'll look like they have like some kind of OCD behavior, and it's not OCD. It's just the order and the structure. They need structure. They need to know,
Right.
and they need to do things a certain way and
Right.
all the time. Okay. So that's the backdrop and kind of understanding that. And if you meet those criteria, and again, every autistic child or adult or teenager,
Right.
they do grow up and they become adults.
Exactly.
They become teenagers and then they become adults. This doesn't go away.
Right.
This is who you are. So you live with this, right?
Right.
So you have adults that are autistic. You do have teenagers that are autistic. They learn how to live with it. They become they become socialized in different ways, and you don't even recognize it, but
Right.
this is what it is.
Exactly. And I think, especially, I mean, when you're talking generationally, um, like in our generation,
You didn't know.
you didn't know, right? But I think that if any of us was to kind of go back and go through this testing, that we probably would, like, I know for myself, I count a lot. Like, I literally count the doors in my, like, I do it all the time. Like, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll just count the doors. Just like in my head, I'll be in an office and I'll count the squares. So it's like, I think all of us have some level of it, right?
Something, yeah.
Undiagnosed, right?
Right,
But,
right. Some level of something, right? And I
right,
used to joke sometimes and say, and it is a hereditary kind of thing. So it is hereditary. So it does fall in families.
yeah,
And so I was constantly looking in our family. I looked in our family,
right,
and
right,
then I definitely looked in on my father's side as well, and I looked on my husband's side. And I found some in my I definitely found it in my father's side. So
right.
there are cousins on my father's side. Don't really have a relationship with them, but
But is it undiagnosed? Like, are you,
there are some.
okay,
There is one that I do know that is diagnosed for
okay,
sure. And I met that person that is diagnosed for sure on my father's side. And I believe my brother, the second oldest, undiagnosed.
okay,
But
right,
whatever.
right, right,
He's 50 something
right.
years old, right? But that's a
Yeah,
different conversation for a different day.
yeah,
And so I share all that to say, because it gives the segue to my dissertation as well. My son had a meltdown. My son is
right,
not the only person who had a meltdown over a computer game or a video game, or not being able to access something on concerning a video game, or
right,
wanting to get onto the computer or doing something tech wise.
right, right,
So that's how my dissertation topic was birth, simply because he wanted to get into an event that was happening on a popular video game called Fortnite. And this happened a little over 3 years ago with Travis Scott. He's I think he's a rap artist or something like that. I think he's married to or in a relationship with one of the Kardashian girls. I don't
right,
know much about this kid, but he was having a live concert. And the Fortnite game, I think it's just if I understand it correctly, it's an open world game, and these open world games are called RPG role playing games. So role playing games are big amongst video gamers,
right,
because you're playing, you're that person, you're actually a part of that, so it feels like you're in the role
right,
of the player. And so you're taking on the persona, right? And so if you're taking on that persona, if you're in that role, if you're in that game, then you're feeling that. And it's this concept called bleed, B-L-E-E-D. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
you're immersed, right?
Yeah.
And so the kids become so immersed in this world and in these games, that it just takes over them. And so he wanted to get into this concert because he wanted to be with Travis Scott, like thousands of other kids on that
Right.
day. And so he was trying to get into this game, and he couldn't get into the game. He couldn't get in, and he was trying so hard. And when he got locked out and the concert went on without him,
Mm.
he had the biggest meltdown that I saw him have. Now my son he's had multiple meltdowns throughout the course of his life. His life. I have 2 cell phones. I have 2 watches. I have 2 of everything, and I've had 2 of everything all of his life, because if I was at work, or if wherever I was at, one have always been for him. So
Mm.
if his teacher or whomever called one of those,
Ah,
was one of those, I always knew that that was my son, and that was signified that it
right.
didn't matter where I was or what I was doing, I gotta go.
Right.
It didn't matter.
Right.
And anyone that knows me knew that, look, my son is ringing, I'm out.
Right.
So my life has been designed and set up to say, if this ring, if this buzz, I'm out.
Right.
And it's just been like that. And that's how it's been. And so until we got him to this point where he got better.
Right.
So to see him have that meltdown after he has gotten better, and we hadn't had these meltdowns, to have that meltdown over this video game, he was distraught and I was
Mm.
distraught. He's crying and I couldn't calm him down, and I'm crying with him, and I'm telling him it's only a game. And he's like, no, mom. And I'm like, yes. He's like, no. And I'm like, yes, it's just a video game.
Wow.
And I'm working with him at this time. And as a parent, no matter how knowledgeable I am, no matter how many degrees I have, no matter how many letters are behind my names, and I have almost every alphabet behind my name.
Right.
Literally, like I take up a whole, like the alphabets that are behind my name literally take up a whole line. Like it goes
Wow.
line. None of that matters when it comes to me as a parent, because I'm always a mother with
Right.
my child. I'm not a therapist. I'm not an expert of anything. I'm just a mom. And so
Right.
that moment, trying to be a mother, and he's going through these things, and I can't do anything. I'm not thinking about being a therapist, but in that moment, it's just like, look at me. It's just a game. And he's looking
Right.
at me, like, just say it's just a game. And he's like, it's just a game, mom. And I'm like, yes, it's just a game. And we're both crying, but
Oh,
it's just a
wow.
game. I'm going to cry now. Like,
Wow.
it's really emotional. It's like, it's
Yeah.
just a game. It's like, it's just a game. I'm like, yeah, it's just a game. And everybody's downstairs. I'm like, it's just a game, but we're going to figure this out. It's just a game. It's like, it's just a game. He said, yeah. He said, but it's more. And I said, but it's just a game.
Mm.
It's just a game. I said, yeah, it's just a game. He said, but it's more. I said, but it's just a game. He said,
Right.
it's just a game. And he couldn't just stop saying, but it's just a game, but it's more. And I said, but it's just a game. So notice when I said that the repetitive.
Right.
So in his mind, nothing was going to settle because he knew it was more, and he couldn't make the connection. All
Ah.
he knew. So the autism piece. So where we have other children who could probably make peace with understanding it's just a game, autism wouldn't allow him to make peace with it's
Mm.
just a game. He knew that, so that autism says is still another piece. And
Right.
autism is black, white, period. It's nothing in between that. Autism said it's another, it's more.
Right.
And it's not gonna settle until it, but mom is more. And I'm like, but it's just a game. No, but it's more. It's just a game. Yeah, it's just a game. Okay, it's just a game. I know that it's just a game. He made sense that it's just a game. I know that it's just a game. No black. It's just a game.
Right.
That's it. It's nothing more.
Wow.
And then we go to it's more. And so my mind had to make sense with that.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
And that's the hard part. So high functioning autism is deceptive. So that's why I say I'm an autism mom. So stay with me here.
Yeah.
High autism, a high functioning autism is deceptive. It's like this. Think of something that makes you very frustrated.
Yeah.
And you just can't get past that frustration. So it's kind of like always being in suspense.
Wow.
And you can't get out of suspense. Like, I know I can. I know it's about to happen, but it's just not happening. Like you're on edge. Like, I know you can do it. It's about to happen, but it's just not. And
wow.
like you're just right there. Like it's going to happen, but it just won't. And come on, you can do it.
Yeah.
And you can't. But you can. I know you can. Why aren't you doing it? Because it looked like it can happen, but then it don't happen.
Wow.
And you're not going to give up because yes, you can. Why can't you do it?
Right.
I know you can. But then it don't happen. Then you beat yourself up because you're beating him up because he can do it, but no, he can't.
Right. Wow. So that's why you say it's deceptive.
It's deceptive.
Yeah.
It's a liar.
Yeah.
It's a liar because he doesn't have a neurotypical brain to understand it. It's not neurotypical.
Right.
That's why he's autistic. It looks like he's neurotypical. It mimics neurotypical because he's moving like he is, because he's not moving as if he's not, where you can see it.
Right, right. So that's kind of like when I'm like, he's brilliant, like he's, for me, because I'm not engaged with him
and
all
I gotta
day.
fight with people all the time because
Right.
they're like, why are you always, and y'all don't live
We
in
don't
my
see,
house.
exactly.
You don't see what I see. You don't fight my struggle every single day, and you don't cry my tears every day. Like, no, my son does not look like he has this brain that's atypical, like this is my struggle every day.
Wow.
Because he's high functioning, because he doesn't look like he has a disability, because he's high functioning. And so that high functioning word is deceptive. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And then
so then I had to, so now I had to shift my brain, and I had to get to this point of, okay, so we're going to get into Travis Scott.
Right.
We're going to get into this concert. So now me, my husband, we're doing everything. We got all hands on deck.
Right.
We're doing everything to get him into this Travis Scott concert with Fortnite. We get into Fortnite. He got in. We celebrated. We're making a big deal. Yay.
Right.
We call the family. We get everybody set up. We get the Zoom all set up, and everybody's watching him. He's sitting there and he's proud, and he's playing the game. And he's excited. And I'm sitting back, and I hate Fortnite.
Wow. Right.
I'm celebrating him, but I'm fuming on the inside because you don't know what you just did to my kid, and he doesn't get that.
Wow.
And so now I'm looking at my house, and my whole house is Wi-Fi. And so now I need to know more. I need to understand this thing. And from there, here we are on April 22nd. I'm going to let them understand why this is really important. We need to understand this a little bit more. We need to look at this a little bit more. Now, of course, it's a little bit more in depth. Right. But that's why I came into this topic, and I think it's really important and that's just my point of view from an autistic mom's point of view. But, parents who have, children who have a neurotypical brain, who can see this, but they still struggle. Right. And they're still having a difficult time. And with parents who kind of, see this as go ahead and allowing their kids out there and just doing the different things that they're doing, and not really realizing the influence and the impact that it's having, and the draw. Right. Can you talk more about that? I think especially,
for parents who, like, I think we talked a little bit yesterday, parents that kind of like, oh, they're fine. They're on, they're kind of letting it, let it babysit, not just like Fortnite. That's something that, I didn't know anything about, but then even social media, because you said Fortnite is considered like a social media kind of platform as well, because there is that digital or virtual social engagement, right?
Yeah, well, and so, and for brevity of time, I know, because I can go on forever because there's so many different facets to this. It's like this. So social media is such a big world. So if we were just to look at social media as just being outside, right? And thinking in terms of any one of these platforms, any type of platform where you can communicate with
Right.
another person, whether it's your cell phone and you texting to another person. So I'm communicating with you in real time. That's social. I'm socializing with you.
Wow.
So
Right.
I can talk to you. So if I can send you a text message and you can get it instantly and you can respond back to me instantly, we're socialized. We're
Right.
now talking. And if I can send you a picture and I can send you a video and I can send you a voice sound, a voice text, and you can get it, that's instant.
Right.
We're socializing. So that's a platform where I can network, I can socialize, I can connect with you, I can interact with you, and I can engage with you. I
Right.
can send you money right now if I want to.
Right.
You can send me money. Thank you. I can buy anything.
Right.
I can watch a program whenever I want. I can do what, I can do what I can have them send me some food. I don't have to leave. So I can engage, I can socialize, I can do whatever I want sitting right here.
Right.
Okay. So that's social, that's engaging. And the fact that we can do that now in this world, it's so influential.
Right.
And now, if my son want to just get up and he, when he gets bored, he'd be like, Mom, can I go outside? Like, no, Josiah, if it's 7 o'clock, last week he said that. It's like 7:30. He was so bored. He said, Mom, can I go outside? Josiah, it's 7:30. Really? Where are you going?
Right.
I'm gonna let you out. I'm gonna let you outside. It didn't make sense to me. Like, I'm not even gonna talk about him.
Right.
But me as a parent, letting my 12, I'm not letting my 12-year-old just, where are you going?
Right. Right.
That doesn't make sense. All right. So let's think about it in that terms. So are you going to let your 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old go outside at 9, 10 o'clock at night?
Right.
If that's a no, why are you going to let them on the game system or the computer at 9, 10 o'clock at night? So being on the internet is being outside.
Yeah.
The world. We're talking to people. We're going into somebody else's home, somebody else's state, somebody else's country, somebody else's world. Instantly. We're communicating with them instantly. We can see them instantly. Just this morning, I had to make my son leave his cell phone home because his brain just went fluttered. His routine is the same.
Right.
And for whatever reason this morning, he couldn't do whatever he needed to do. I said, okay, I think you had the cell phone. You had it all week. You had it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I didn't take it. My fault. My fault. Leave your cell phone home because your brain is mushy. And when I say that to him, that meant that you're doing too much and you can't focus.
Wow.
I need to take this from you. You shouldn't have had it anyway. So then when I took it, I went through the phone just to check and make sure everything is good and make sure, who was he talking to?
Yeah.
Calling. And there was 2 or 3 voice messages, like from numbers.
Wow.
So I just hit it and listened to him. And the numbers didn't even make sense. He didn't listen to him, but it was like a Chinese message. And I'm like, okay, delete. And then another one, and one just said something like, I'm your friend. And if you want to talk, call me back. And the
Oh my.
exchange was from Delaware. I know the exchange because I got a lot of clients from Delaware, and I just kindly deleted it.
Wow.
Right. I'm not even going to say anything to him about it because he probably don't even know too. But again, that's probably because he was probably in one of those 19
Right.
fame rooms or whatever, and probably was talking to somebody, and then, somebody, just instant message him on the side, and then, so you have to be
Wow.
careful. Yeah.
I mean,
And
that is frightening.
very frightening.
Like I'm sitting here, my mind is blown because even when you're saying like you wouldn't let your child outside when it's nighttime or after 7:30, 9 o'clock, but so many kids are on these social media platforms like around the clock.
All the
And it's interesting too.
time talking to.
Right. And it's interesting because, on one hand, you're talking about a child with, I guess on an autism spectrum, but then you're talking about children, and I don't know the proper terminology, but children that's not on the autism spectrum. And then we're talking about adults who are, going back to the language that you used earlier, immigrants to this whole social media thing. And I think in each case, there is the possibility of being, I mean, you talk about adults being catfished, right? It's like, that's something where you're on this platform, and what you would typically do in the natural or the physical, you're a little more relaxed in this space because it doesn't feel real, but it has real implications and real ramifications if you're not wise on these platforms. And if you're not and if you're not really thinking on these platforms, like you hear so many stories where people are, oh, I've been catfished, and I, gave people money, and I've sent them, nude pics, and I've, you've done all these things that in real life you probably would hesitate. So it's curious to think about, like, what is it about these social media platforms that, leaves people, what is the word, like,
The instant gratification is the instant gratification.
ah,
It's the emotional, like
wow,
it is that the endorphins that comes with,
right.
like it just feels a need instantly. And it's that social capital. It's like that bonding. If it satisfies something right there.
Right.
And we all have this need for something.
That is terrifying. That
Is
is
that connection
terrifying.
and feeling like, and think about it, like, so just in your head for a moment, right? Post something, come to the page, and they hit like, bing,
Yeah.
and that bing, bing, it becomes satisfying. And now
Yes.
they come back for more. And so they want the likes. It
Right.
becomes satisfying. But the moment that you put Will Smith, let's just do this real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was at the top of his game, got his first Oscar, right? He worked really hard all his life, and he
Right.
got to the Oscar. And in a moment of weakness, hit this man. And just like that, now everybody hates him. Really?
Right. Right. Right.
Right? And now this man who was adored is now villainized.
Right.
Right? And now the likes are being pulled away.
And then we don't even know what that's doing to his psyche, right?
We don't know what that is doing to us. Oh, it's doing something to us now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is interesting because I didn't realize this until we're talking now, but I think your PhD program is similar because mine is in communications and talking about rhetorical discourse specifically. But when I think about rhetoric and, how it has emerged in this digital age, and with the swiftness and how quickly it,
like that.
it's amazing. So as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about, my area of study as well. And that's why I'm like, this is frightening, because I'm looking at it from one area, but there are so many other areas that is really being, that is
Effective.
really
Yeah,
impacting people's lives.
yeah.
Like, it's not even like I'm thinking about it in this theoretical sense, but I'm not looking at it, maybe I should, in a real life, real time, like you're doing. Like, how is this impacting people's life in real time?
It's scary
It is.
because we're afraid to, a lot of people, I mean, and not to, because it was
No,
drawn out,
no,
not to
take your time. Take your time.
belabor Will Smith and Chris Rock, but I think people are really afraid to look at the real issue and the core of it. And, and not to even take it to a spiritual sense, but, I think God has just given me a spiritual eye to see
Right.
Beneath the surface.
Right.
I'm not a surface kind of person. And I think that's just a gift. I know everybody
Right.
don't have that gift. And so I thank God for that gift to see what other people can see. So you have the first layer, and that's that surface. But then you have a deeper core. And what's
Right.
and everybody, oh, he's angry. That's not anger. That wasn't anger.
Right.
And that wasn't displaced anything. I mean, it was a
Right.
lot of it. Like, if I was to operate on that and peel that back, there's so
Yeah.
many different things going on there. And even with Chris Rock, and I mean, if you could read the expressions on everybody's face,
Right.
Will and Jada's,
Right.
like, those expressions have language, and it spoke volumes. They were in my sessions all week, and
Right.
they brought tears. Like, every client that I brought up their names, initially every client laughed at first. Ah, yeah. Like, they started off with a laugh. But by the
Wow.
time I finished, every single client left with a tear.
Wow.
By the time I finished.
Right.
Because if you really read the expressions and you heard what their facial expressions and their language said, then you would have saw something different.
Right.
And so the language is so pertinent. Like, language is
Yeah.
everything. And that, so my theoretical foundation, I came from I used three different theoretical foundation. It was symbolic interactionism, social cultural constructivism, and social capital. And so that
Mm.
symbolic interactionism talk about, we give language. Symbolic interactionism is the basis of all communication. So, like, social media is a form of communication.
Yeah.
It's how we communicate. It's our language. And that social cultural constructivism is, people, like,
Right.
they form, they give, the basis of they create their own reality
Yeah.
based on their experiences, right? And so we're shaping and forming and creating our reality based on our experiences. And even with the whole social media thing, is that social capital is a different form of currency. Money
Yeah.
don't mean anything now. It's like what I can show you that I have, like, I'm trying to outdo you.
Right. Right.
Social media, like, I see what you got going on, and my life don't measure up. And
Wow.
now, I'm feeling like crap because I'm looking at your life on social media, and I'm depressed and I'm sad
Right.
and messed up. And now I gotta go out here and get $15,000 boots and
Right.
$10,000 hair and $50,000 nails and take a picture.
Right.
I'm like 75,000. I'm in $75,000 to do what? Take a picture.
Right. Oh,
And then where you going?
right.
To your
Yeah.
very down home?
Yeah. Listen, you are everything you're saying. I'm just nodding because that's where we are as
That
a
is where we are.
society. And it's so crazy because people don't see it. Like, we're constantly saying that, like terms like my truth. It's like people don't realize how weird that is, and how much of a pitfall, that can set up for you. To say, like, it's no longer the truth, but it's my truth. It's the way that I see the world. And it impacts the way that we communicate, because that's why we can't even have conversations, because it's so much about, no, the way I see the world is right and the way that you see it is wrong. And the reality is neither side is looking at the facts of a matter. Like, we're all pulling from it. And I hate to use the word fascinating, but it is fascinating to see where we've come from and how we're not even finished, right? Because the digital age is only getting faster, is only more available. It's and even when you're starting talking about this Fortnite thing, it's creating real feelings that's connected to this virtual thing, this thing that's not real. And so it's just it's I mean, we talked about the Fortnite thing, but I'm sure when we talk about, other social media platforms, like, you can really see how entangled we can become.
You know what? Listen, I mean, I ain't got nothing against her, but somebody should pay her for that word. Jada. I'm serious. She put that word on the market, because that's another word that finds its way in my sessions.
Right.
Because it gave some depth to that word.
Exactly.
She really did. She gave some depth to that word, entangled.
Exactly.
It's a crazy word these days. I'm gonna give you a book, a name of a book. I also use this in my dissertation too. So if you want to learn a little bit more,
yeah, absolutely.
It was written in 1989, but it's fascinating because it's like it's relevant for today. And it's titled Evil Influences. Evil Influence Crusades Against the Mass Media. And it's written by Steven Starker.
Yeah.
And it's funny because what's funny about the book is it was written in 1989, and it's talking about media and how it influences the generation of the time. And it talks about each new mass media, how the parents of that time was threatened by the media that came about in that time, feeling that it was poisoning and hurting the generation of that time. So you had radio. Ooh. Then you had television.
Exactly.
Ooh. Then, and so each new mass media that came about, they were feeling the same way.
Absolutely.
So here we are now, in this digital age, and we're still
I mean, that literally is like the foundation for like my studies is, you think about even with Socrates, a part of the reason that he was, executed was because they felt like, oh, the stuff that you're saying is going to impact our youth in a negative way. And so even during those times, 380 BC and all that stuff, even during those times, it was just verbal communication. There was no written, that people would write occasionally, but the way that, people would go into the town squares and they would hear from their politicians or their theologians and, the people that had authority to speak, right? So everybody didn't have authority to speak, which is even more fascinating when you think about social media now, is because everybody is an expert. Everybody has something to say. But whereas before, when it was just a verbal communication, the powers that be during that time, they managed that, right? They managed it in such a way that you had to have been, you had to have the authority to speak to the people. And so, and then if you're saying something that was inconsistent with the masses or with the leaders, right, then it was like, okay, you can't speak because you're saying something. So there was this censorship that was taking place. And even to the point where in the case of Socrates, it's like, nope, we're going to shut you down. In fact, we're going to take your very life because what you're talking about, the rhetoric that you're spreading is going to negatively impact our youth. And not really, right? But according to the standards that were, you saying anything contradictory is the impact to our youth. And so now you look at where we are and you think about that conversation with Socrates, and you think about now where our children can get information. We can get information about anything. And not only can we get information about anything, you can get a group of people that will fall in line with you on a particular thinking that would, for anybody else, like you'll have somebody say, oh, I want to marry my dog. And you're not going, whereas before that's like, that's weird.
Did that happen?
It did. That was a real case, right?
Yeah. Like, did that happen?
Exactly. But then you will literally get hundreds of thousands of people that will stand with you to say, no, you should be able to do that. And so I think that is another, I don't even know where it takes us, but that's another thing that we have to contend with when we're thinking about not just raising children, but we're thinking about the engagement with all these different social media platforms. And then thinking about, you think about like Bitcoins and cryptocurrency, all of this is digital. So there's this whole other world that's being created, and it's becoming people's reality, but it's not a reality at all. And so when you lose the sense of reality, you have to wonder, where does that leave a society? And that's literally where we are right now. I fear that, as bizarre and as strange and as crazy as some of the things that we've been sharing, we're just touching the iceberg. Like, we're just at the tip of what this thing can really be. And our lawmakers, they're not even knowledgeable enough, because again, if we're immigrants, they're like really immigrants, right? Because in our generation, we at least have a little bit of how it used to be and this new digital space, and we can kind of dip in and out of it. But for some people, especially people that are in the lawmaker positions who are generations ahead of us, who are really even trying to understand what's a bit, what's an emoji, like they don't even understand the language. So they don't even know how to, I don't even want to use the word censor, but they don't know how to regulate it. And so right now it is going untapped, right? And it's having an impact. Go ahead, you wanted to say something.
So you said two things. Understanding the language and knowing how to regulate.
Right.
So to sum up my complete dissertation, that's my findings, right? We speak a totally different language.
Right.
And because we speak a totally different language, it makes it difficult to mitigate, to regulate what our children are doing, because they speak it's a different language. They're ahead of my son is ahead of me.
Yeah.
He's ahead of me. And I'm brilliant.
Right. Right. Amen.
I'm about to get a doctorate.
Right.
That little sucker is only in the 7th grade.
Right.
Right. He's only in the 7th. And I got a couple of degrees.
Right.
Like I said, every alphabet. But
right.
His language is different. And he figured out how to get into my cell phone, broke my password again. I didn't know. Parents, everybody, and I didn't know this, as I only have Apple. In case you didn't know, because I did not know, just because your screen is locked does not mean that you can't get your password. I didn't know that.
Oh.
You can get your password.
I didn't even know what that means. And he figured that out.
Yeah. Type in pass. I didn't know that. I was like, how did you get my password? He said, I figured it out. How? He typed in password.
No way. Just type in password.
Just type all these years.
Right.
This little sucker. Yes, I said it. And everybody gonna hear me call my son a sucker. He typed in password and then got my password.
Wow.
And then, so you can, in case for those parents who didn't know. So I learned that. And then once he did that, then he went to the screen thing, to the settings, and went to my screen time, and then went in there, and then he figured out my screen time password, because it wasn't hard to figure that out. He just punched in a couple of codes until he figured out which one I would use. Because I'm old. I mean,
there you go. Because we're trying to keep it simple. Like, I'm not trying to remember 15 character, so it's like we don't phrase it up, right?
I'm I'm old. I ain't gonna keep on changing them up because I gotta remember. I got too many to remember.
Exactly.
Like she getting old. She gonna keep one of these.
Wow.
He figured out one of them. And then he changed the screen time password and undid my screen time stuff. And then he just went rogue, right? And just had fun. He undid the screen time stuff. And he's 12 and autistic. So he ain't that non-neurotypical.
No, exactly. No, it's amazing. Like that's what I said. We're just hitting the tip of the iceberg. Like it is moving so quickly that once you learn something, you learn the language has changed, right? And so it's like, when they talk about crypto, it is really cryptic, trying to navigate these virtual.
Yeah, so the language is different. So it's important for us parents to know the language, to know their language,
exactly.
to understand. We call them acronyms. They might. All right, for example, LOL, we would consider that a acronym, right? That's a language for them.
Yeah.
And they speak that language. They're using all kinds of acronyms.
Right.
That's a language. And if you don't understand the language, you don't understand the code. You don't understand what they're saying to each other. And if you don't understand what they're speaking to each other, how do you know how to protect them?
Yeah. And it's crazy because that impacts everything.
Everything is not only the acronyms. Let's not be fooled just by the acronym. Right. We also have to understand these gifts. We might just see them as funny. We might think they're just sending pictures.
Right.
No. Okay. The pictures are also language. Don't just see the emojis as emojis. The emojis have cryptic language as well. Right. So they also send the emojis in cryptic language as well. So if there's a string of emojis, the emojis is a sentence.
Right. Wow.
The emojis is communicating something. And if you don't understand the language, you're lost.
Exactly. And I want to touch on this because, and I know, but I think this is an important piece to talk about, because a lot of times, in our generation, we'll see somebody, they're being bullied online. And our response is, well, get offline, but we don't recognize or understand that is their world, like their lives and their livelihood and their reputation and all that stuff is connected. So when we don't even understand the sensitivity of that,
they're just being kids. No, they're not. Kids are dying.
Exactly. So that's where
12, 13, 14, and 15 years old are being shot and killed over these cryptic languages.
Exactly.
This
and not only alone, that, but taking their
this week alone in Philadelphia, this week alone here in my hometown, every single day, probably 10 kids in between the ages of 12 to 15 dead, guns, dead. Social media.
And they're starting like social media.
I mean, well,
like what we would call.
I can't say all of it, but they're. I mean, if they start investigating this stuff, I'm quite sure you're going to find some of this stuff on. I mean, and this is happening at 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They're not shooting you in the middle of the night anymore. They're waiting till you get out of school, and they're walking home from school, and they're they're getting out of the car. Nobody is afraid of anybody.
Wow.
And they're shooting you. Kids, children. Kids are and another thing that are language. So they have group texts. So these text messages where, so how everybody have group text. So you have friends that are in group text.
Right.
So it's not just Twitter and TikTok and Snapchat and all that. So there's cell phones also. So you have small group text. I have young girls. I have a lot of young girls that I treat because they got kicked out of a group text.
Right. And that's like not being able to sit at the cool kids table.
I don't have anywhere to sit at a lunch table. I have to sit by myself, or I'm sitting at a group. Like they're sitting by themselves at the lunch table, or sitting at a table that you're not supposed to sit at. So if you're not in a group text, or if you got kicked out of a group text, or if you're not a part of a group text, that's one of the worst things that you can be a part of in this generation right now.
Because that's their social engagement. that is
Scary.
very scary. Now,
And
of
whether
course,
we want to accept it or not, we have to understand this. I
right,
don't like it. I really don't, but I'm
right,
trying to wrap my head around it. So when we're talking about language, so the word language is not like what we're doing right now,
right,
communication. Language is really meaning how are we socialized? You know, language is to supplement like culture. This is our
yeah,
culture, our language, this is our world. And so we have to understand this language. We have to understand how they are socialized, and we need to be a part of that. We need to figure out how to be immersed in that so that we can protect our children. Our kids are dying.
yeah,
They are really dying, and it's really important to understand that. And as a social worker, yes, I'm a clinical therapist, and that's what I do all day long. You know, I treat mental health issues, depression, anxiety, trauma. You know, I specialize in trauma. I do a lot of trauma work. And, you know, I talk for a living all day long, but at the core of who I am, I'm a social worker. I mean, can you
right,
not
right.
be a social worker? I am a social worker, a master's in
Mm,
social work. I have a doctorate in social work. I'm a social worker. You know, I look at human behavior in
right,
this environment, and I study that. And so we need to understand this so we can address these types of issues. And this is it's my job to understand these types of behaviors so I can better serve my community, so I can help
right,
parents understand these things, so I can help parents help their children, and so I can be a better mom. I mean, it starts home.
right,
You know, my son teach me everything I need to know. And when I watch him and I understand him and I see what it is that he's going through, you know, he helped me understand what I need to do different so that I can take it to work, and then I can help my parents become better at what it is that I do. So,
wow.
yep.
I'm sure there's so much more that we can talk about on this topic because, as you mentioned, you know, as a social worker, this topic impacts everything. I mean, everything. You know, I'm working in one of my classes right now. We're talking about economics, and I'm talking about poverty. And one of the pieces of that is like technology, and I mean,
Disparate is, yeah,
yeah.
we could go on.
But it's so crazy too, because people don't realize that even with your social media, how if you're looking for jobs, like employees look at your social media, right? People lose their jobs because of stuff that they post on social media. They lose,
They
you know,
don't realize.
positions, and they don't realize how intertwined this
Mhm.
language or this world is into what we would consider like the, you know, reality, right? And then how I think how it's impacting and blurring the, you know, blurring our reality. I mean, just so many things, you know, I think about, like I said, politically, you know, technologically wise, we're spiritually, right?
Mhm.
So many different things. And it really makes for it really creates this challenge for us as a society. You know, I don't even know where we go from here. It is, like I said, I just feel like we're at the tip of
Lot.
the iceberg. Yeah, at the tip of the iceberg, and I think that there will come. I think about, and I know we're probably way over, but I think about, you know, a lot of movies that they make, and even books that's been written. You know, Fahrenheit would was it 451 or whatever it is. But I think about things like that where this kind of dystopia type society where you could be like, man, we would never see that. But now the path to some of these most bizarre futures that, you know, that people could have imagined and written in books or put in movies, like you see the path to that so clearly. And how, like, I remember specifically, you know, we have a praying grandmother, had a praying grandmother, mommy, and I remember reading in the Bible. She was reading in the Bible, and it was talking about, I think it was like in Second Timothy, and it's like, you know, in the last days people will be, and it kind of starts going through all these things. And I remember thinking, like, how is that gonna, how does like children will, you know, disobey their parents? You know, we were raised in a generation, you better not even think about, you know, disobeying your parents. But now you see, like, I would have never thought that I would see
We
something
are
like that in this lifetime, where, you know, children are like, or where people become lovers of themselves. You
Mhm.
know, it's like, how, you know, how can that be? But now you see all of that stuff so plain and so clear.
So clear.
And I think for parents that's raising children, of course, my babies are adults, and, you know, we have these conversations. but it's amazing. I could not imagine raising a child in this age. And, you know, like you said, to take away their cell phone is like taking away a lifeline almost, or at least it feels that way for them.
I have parents calling me like, she smacked me in my face.
Oof. Yeah.
Smacked me in my face because I took the cell phone.
Yeah.
And 1 week I had three parents. One, the kid, 11 years old, she smacked me in my face because I took the cell phone. The other parent said, well, what am I supposed to do? You know, she's
Right.
not going to school. And she said, if I turn on her Spotify and turn on her messenger and give her back her cell phone, she'll go to school. So she's boycotting school. Like, yeah, like, and you need to come and apologize to me. Like, apologize to who?
Wow.
Yep, I'm a social worker, but apologize to who?
Right. Jeez. Well, I mean, this is so fascinating. I can talk about this all day, but I wanted to just give you opportunity. You know, time has really gotten away from us, but I wanted to give you opportunity if there's something that you wanted to share. You know, just thinking about, you know, this social media thing and how it's impacting our children, and is there something like really pressing that you think parents ought to know, and really kind of keep at the forefront?
I think I said it all. I think the most important thing is just pay attention. Just
Yeah.
if it becomes a struggle, just think, if I wouldn't allow my child, you know, if your child is under the age of 18, you know, and they're still living at home, if it's something that you wouldn't allow your child to just go outside and just do on their own,
Right. Wow.
unsupervised, if it's something that you wouldn't, you know, just allow them to do without following up on them, unsupervised,
Right.
off of the handheld cell phone, computer, tablet,
Mm.
whatever that digital device might be. Then don't let them do it on a digital device too. Just whatever device they have and that's in their hand that they're
Wow.
on, consider it to be their world.
Wow.
Consider it to be their replace that for their outside
Mm.
socialization, contact with their peers. That digital device is their social world, their contact. It is their life.
Wow.
Supervise it in the same manner as you would a person.
Right.
Human interaction.
Right. No, that is, I think, a great perspective that parents have to have. Um, because I am so proud of you, and the work that you're doing is, you know, when you think about, you know, God created you for such a time as this. I think everything that He has placed in you is for such a time as this. And I'm so happy that you have the opportunity to, you know, to talk through it, and to share it and to teach others, because it is so incredibly important. And I know that you are absolutely walking and working in your purpose. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm so happy to call you family. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to, you know, just to come on this platform and kind of share your wisdom. Obviously, sending prayers and blessings and love and confidence and everything that you need for your, you know, defending your dissertation in the weeks ahead. But just know it's already in you. Like, you are an expert already in this, and the world needs to hear, you know, all the things that you found and what you've researched. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, to come and share some of that knowledge with me and my Girlfriend Therapy audience. Love you so much, cuz.
Love you too. Thank you for having me. And you know, I'm in all of you. I appreciate everything that you do. So super proud of you.
Oh,
Keep doing what you're doing. Keep letting God use you. Keep inspiring the world as you do, and keep
amen.
inspiring us, and just keep, you know, being the beacon of light that you are for
Amen.
us, me and my big cousin, and
Amen.
paving the way for us to follow in your footsteps, because you're doing it. So
Amen.
thank you.
Right
And I
back at you.
love you so much. Thank
Love
you.
you more. Thank you guys for tuning in. Prayerfully, you've gotten something from this. This was an amazing conversation. And like most conversations, we could have talked about this all day. But thank you guys, for joining us, and thank you for, you know, listening. So until next time, blessings.